Grow CFO is where finance leaders grow together. Join thousands of like-minded professionals using Grow CFO to access the combined knowledge and experience of the finance leader community. You can join us today at growcfo.net. Hello and welcome to the Grow CFO Show. I'm your host, Kevin Appleby, and today I've got a CFO with me from one of the largest pharmaceutical giants in the USA, Teva. Sharon Barber-Lui, welcome to the Grow CFO Show.
Thank you, Kevin. It's exciting to be here with you today and to talk about how we can inspire the next generation of CFOs and finance leaders.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what does a best-in-class finance team look like. But before we do that, CFO in Teva, that's a pretty high-powered job, Sharon. How did you get there?
Well, it took many years and it took many positions. I was very fortunate to build my career journey starting off in public accounting. And that was great to get into the industry. But after about 4 years, I decided I wanted to be more connected to the mission of a company. And I looked around and I came across Merck. Merck, large pharmaceutical company focused on innovating and delivering medicines to patients. That very much connected with me. And so I joined Merck. Little did I know that I would be there for about 21 years. And it was a fantastic ride being part of that organization and having the chance to move around and take on more than 10 different positions, always building out my toolkit and skills and experiences from operations to strategy to FP&A, but financial management, budgeting, business development, supporting that. So really just building that organization. A key inflection was when I joined the oncology team as Merck was building that from the ground up and was there from the beginning to see that incredible franchise grow to what it is today. But we grew it from practically ground up to $4 billion in annual revenues in 4 years, which is amazing from a shareholder value, but also the impact to patients. And that's probably the most important piece. Through that journey, I realized I love building and creating and innovating. Even with the financial expertise, I decided to join a biotech. And that was building really from the ground up.
That's a big change, Merck, and dropping into a small biotech. There must have been some culture shock there.
I think the similarities were very much the entrepreneurial spirit. But yes, resources-wise, what I had resources at a large company, definitely when you get into a biotech, when it was post-IPO and still growing, resources, you really need to rely on yourself to be and building that team from the ground up and really providing a culture of nurturing and teamwork. So yes, it was quite a bit of a difference, but an exciting one nonetheless.
So you've gone from very big to very small for a short period of time, but you're back in very big.
Well, I like to think about it at Teva with being CFO of North America as the best of both worlds. It's where big pharma meets entrepreneurial biotech. And that's what really attracted me to the organization, this environment where you can innovate, you can create, and do it rather quickly. And the company is going through a major transformation with the pivot to growth strategy. And so I realized I could probably have an impact here. So I joined.
So that sort of entrepreneurial thing going on, a big growth strategy, that sounds as though you need quite a dynamic finance team to support you. Tell me a little bit about what your team looks like.
Today, my team is about 200 individuals, ranging from traditional accounting, FP&A, systems implementations, to revenue optimization. It's the entire facet of treasury and tax, as well as supply chain management from the finance side. So it's a pretty robust team. And it's a team that over just a short period of time, we very much have connected on being the best we can be and creating that high-performing culture.
Brilliant. So managing a team of 200 people, that's quite a challenge. What do you find the biggest challenges yourself in managing that sort of size team?
I think it's the part that is managing 200 people where they had been used to a certain way of operating. And then now having a leader like myself come in and challenge how we do things and doing it differently. And also having them think we are going to be moving into the future with best in class processes, best in class competencies, and that each one of them needed to model that as well.
So, what do you think best in class actually looks like?
Great question. Kevin, we could talk about this topic for hours because I love to discuss about best in class and high performing teams. In my career, I've been really fortunate to be part of some of the best and brightest and most effective, productive teams where each individual reaches and achieves higher potential. I think there's really three aspects from my perspective. Trust is very important in any relationship. And so just as we have a team, trust has to be embedded for individuals to be able to feel it's a safe space to speak up, to share ideas. Without that, you don't really have much to build on. So trust is the foundation. Next is the shared purpose. So are we all moving in the same fashion or same direction? Or are we all focused on different priorities? I found sometimes when I was part of a team, there could be 3, 4 different priorities. And so we were not aligned on the shared purpose or objectives that we were looking to accomplish. So setting that early on is extremely important and only ensures that the expectations are there for a team to succeed. So I can't underestimate taking the time to ensure everyone is connected and feels all in on that purpose, that objective to move forward. And then I think the third aspect of being part of a high-performing team is never being complacent, that continuous improvement. I'm very passionate about this because I want individuals on my team who are never satisfied, that want to continue to challenge themselves, their teammates, the company, the business, how we can do things better. That's how best in class teams operate. They're never satisfied. They always feel that the next opportunity is there or around the corner and they're going to go get it.
You talked about making a big change in the period that you've been CFO. Tell me a little bit about the sort of changes that you've made to move towards that best in class.
There's a couple things that with the organization, and I found each member of my team very dedicated, very loyal, very committed to what we needed to accomplish. So from that perspective, I was starting off with very motivated and dedicated individuals, which is important to make sure we're connected on that. But as a new leader in the organization, they needed to know how Sharon wants to move or how we as an organization can bring together and move. So there's a couple things. One is I highlighted my strategic priorities or leadership style. And the way that I focused on that is having my team all come together and be able to learn who I am and what's important to me, but also for me to hear from them. So I spent a lot of time with my organization. And in fact, pretty much I know my entire team, even 200 people. I know them. I'm very approachable. I like to meet them even when we have Bagel Tuesdays in the office. But a couple things is it's important that we all focus on delivering results. As a finance organization, and as most finance organizations, we are tied to timelines, deliverables, budgets. So it's critical that we have that credibility around delivering results. And next is about innovating. And I spent a lot of time discussing and asking my team, how do you innovate? What makes you think, what does innovation mean to you? How do we create better business partnering? Because the goal of us as a finance organization, we should be the connective tissue within the entire organization, enterprise, full stop. And that is the beauty of being a finance team, is that connectivity across the enterprise. And then how do we do it? Through teamwork, through excellence, adaptability, and inspiring others. So that's what I brought the team together, and we're on that journey now.
Brilliant. We've talked about best in class and we've talked about high performing teams. Are they the same thing, or do you see something slightly different when you talk high-performing team?
Okay, this is a very intriguing question. They could be one and the same. They could be a high performing team, could also be striving for best in class. A best in class team may achieve greater results, but it may not operate as a high performing team. So I think they could be independent, but there's a very strong overlap because in order to achieve being the best, I believe you need to be connected and you need to have the foundations of being a high performing team. So I don't want to say that they can't coexist. They certainly could, but I think the greater probability is that they overlap. They're one and the same.
Now, you talked about business partnering, talked about that being the connective tissue. What do you think makes a great business partner?
So I have an analogy for this. I feel that a great finance person who is a business partner should actually be not known as the finance person in the room. So if you were to go around a table and say, who's the finance individual, you may not know them because they've been talking about the business. They understand the customers. They understand the market challenges, the opportunity spaces, how we can become more digitally savvy. And it's a beautiful thing when I've had individuals come up to me from other functions and say, wow, I didn't know that individual was a finance person on your team because they certainly knew more about the business than some people around the table. And that's what I think it makes a true business partner, a finance individual as a business partner, is when they can understand and anticipate and be that thought partner to the business without even recognizing. They just happen to have a lot of financial expertise as well.
Brilliant. I'm going to keep that and bottle it. Now, we're running in Grow CFO a business partnering bootcamp, and that is all about getting people away from going to the business and just presenting the boring accounting numbers into understanding the business problems, giving the appropriate financial advice, not recommending, but showing the choices, being able to tell stories, all the things that you describe into that end product of what great business partnering looks like. So I do think getting business partnering right really is part of being best in class.
Yes. And I think sometimes finance individuals may have a shortfall that we tend to be, and I'll say, even in my case, I've, encountered this, having a very internal view. But business partnering is also having that external view. And so I very much encourage my team, think about when we are thinking about budgets, for example, or a financial modeling or a business development deal. Not only what's happening internally, but how does this compare externally? What other deals are happening? What are the valuations? If in the case of a business development transaction that we're evaluating, or in the case of how we're performing in the market, how is the competitive peer group performing? Are they encountering such similar situations, or are we exceeding? And how do we take those learnings and continue to develop and challenge ourselves? So I think another aspect of business partnering and where finance individuals can really bring value is bringing that external lens, because often we get very internal focused, and having that external focus to keep us grounded is very important. I think finance professionals can do that.
Definitely. Competitive benchmarking, revenue analysis, maybe even using some strategy tools and bringing things to light that would come out of, say, a Porter's 5 Forces analysis. I think that's what our folks should be doing. They should understand all of those things.
I had a situation that for business partnering, since we're on this topic, where we were leveraging advanced analytics within the finance team more rapidly and using it to have better insights so that we can put them into action quicker. We share that with the business, the commercial team, in preparation for a launch. And they didn't need to reinvent. They could leverage what we had already been using. And in fact, they were very thankful that we were pioneering in this space. So we took the time to learn and work on this predictive analytics and advanced analytics. So those are examples of how finance teams can really add value in business partnering across the organization and never being, lacking that fearlessness. I think finance individuals have fearless leadership. can ask questions and really ask the tough questions that no one else wants to ask in a meeting.
Yeah, I think those analytics subjects are really interesting. And FP&A is definitely the place that most finance teams are growing at the moment. But too often, I think we put it in a little box and say that, oh, FP&A, that's forecasting and budgeting. But it's a lot more than forecasting and budgeting. All of those analytics you can be bringing along. And it's not just pulling the data out, it's the art of telling stories with that data that makes it so important.
Correct. I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the storytelling as well as FP&A. Yes, traditionally it's been around running different scenarios or financial forecasts, but how do we get more nimble and leveraging technology? There is an enormous amount of technology that is out there that we could be leveraging, and AI and automation. So these are all things that if we as finance individuals are not embracing, guess what? We're not going to make ourselves relevant, because those are the tools that will up our game and make us better. And again, going back to the high performing team, never getting complacent, always continuous improvement. If we need to be leveraging technology and the best tools out there. Now, it may not always work, but we need to test and learn and continue to look at opportunities.
Absolutely. So I guess that AI is something that you're encouraging all of your people to really get a grip of it right now.
AI is an interesting space because it's so broad. Where do you start? It's like the shiny apple. Everyone is gravitating towards AI, but what are we trying to accomplish? Is it a simple business question that could be accomplished with perhaps some simple analytics? Not everything requires AI. And so I always incent my team to look at what is the business challenge or question? What are we trying to accomplish? Is it something that needs a long roadmap, or is it something simple that can be accomplished in a matter of hours or days? Because if AI is expensive, tends to be expensive, tends to require commitment, long-term commitment, and a choice. Because which one are we going to select, or what selection of AI, different tools and components will we leverage? And the market is still evolving. The industry is still evolving. So what we have today, 3 years from now, might look very different. And so what we need to really be focused on, it's not just chasing what's the best thing out there, is what is needed and fit for purpose in this particular situation. So I often ask my team and myself to really challenge ourselves and say, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? And let's fit, it's a fit for purpose situation. And it may not require the biggest solution.
Oh, I agree. For me, it's a time saver. It's a research assistant. But would I rely on it for the final product? Absolutely no way at the moment. The final product has got to be the human brain thinking about who's the audience, what do the audience need, what's the best way to put things for the audience to respond, and crafting something appropriately given all of that sort of human intuition almost that I don't think we'll ever quite be able to build into AI.
Yeah, exactly. The creativity, the critical thinking, the analytical approach. I think as finance individuals, this is core to how we need to be thinking about best in class and in the future of a finance individual or CFO, and where we can add a lot of value. So creativity, finance individuals have been in the past, like, how creative can finance be? Well, finance individuals can be quite creative because they tend to be problem solvers. When there's a problem, they want to solve it. Okay, we're ready. What's the issue? What's the problem? We could have solved it yesterday. A lot of finance individuals and professionals have that mindset. And so why not have leveraging the creative aspect? So I want to challenge individuals to think about finance individuals differently.
Yes. No, we're talking AI, we're talking about that creativity. I'm very aware that the CFO role is evolving, probably faster than it's ever done before. And the role of the finance team is evolving. What do you think the critical skills are going to be going forward?
This is what I will say about a CFO are great CFOs now and of the future. Great CFOs and great finance organizations are the business within the business. They are connecting the organization. They are thinking differently. They are challenging others. This is again a little bit about myself. Whenever I take on a role as a finance individual, I say, okay, within 6 months, I should pay for myself with creative ideas or value that I have brought to the organization. And why is that? Because I have a unique opportunity, and finance individuals, I challenge my team every day. They sit in a unique place in the organization. They can connect commercial to R&D, to business development, to strategy across the entire organization. That is unique. And we should capitalize on that and we should leverage it. So from that perspective, I think the CFO and finance organizations of the future need to think about themselves as the business within the business.
I like that. Really like that. Now, thinking though about the individuals within a finance team, or in particular your finance team, how important is diversity and inclusion in that?
Whenever I look at in my team, whether it's a team of 5 people or a team of 200 people, I am constantly thinking about the diversity of thought. Have I surrounded myself with people who look and think like me? Because if that's the case, I'm not getting the best. And it's very difficult. Let's be honest. Saying it and doing it is very difficult.
You're people that you'll subconsciously always gravitate to people that are like you.
That's correct. I think there's just a natural inclination to be surrounded people like yourself. Now, how do I think about it differently? It starts with looking at my team and seeing, is there a broad section of genders, ethnicities, age groups, abilities? And if it doesn't, that's not to say that the team should be changed. It's just we have some work to do. And so when when a new position becomes open, I want to ensure that my team and we cast a wide net. We should be ensuring that our candidate pool is diverse, is broad. And if it's not, we keep going back to that. That takes a lot of time and effort. It's not easy. But if we're not doing that, then we're not doing ourselves a favor in the long run. And for me, it's about winning the marathon, not just the sprint. So we might be able to get an individual into a role, but it doesn't add to our diverse thought and experiences. And so some individuals say to me, or some of my peers in the past say, Sharon, how come you didn't fill that role so quickly? Well, you know what? I was holding out for the best and I wanted the best. And in the end, it pretty much has worked out because I take my time and make sure that from a fit perspective, that individual fits into the organization, their mindset about reaching higher and better and innovating and challenging others. And that in the end is the unlocking the value of a team. And so I want to challenge, if anyone's listening today, don't just settle. Don't settle for talent. Get the best talent because it will just create a lot more opportunities and have you reach your full potential as a team, as a business, as a company.
And I guess having the diversity of people leads to the diversity of thought and the diversity of ideas.
Yes, diversity of people leads to diverse ideas. So as we've seen, I would say I like to be a magnet for diversity. And how does that happen? You need to coach, mentor, inspire, reach out to individuals, and to some extent share what the company's doing. Many individuals are so busy every day, they may not know what opportunities exist. So it's also incumbent on a leader to have that outreach. Talent just doesn't come. You have to cultivate it. You have to work at it. You have to market what's the company's about, share what's happening. I can't tell you enough, Kevin, where I reached out where I was at a small biotech and people didn't know who we are. And in fact, most biotechs, it's hard. You have to develop and cultivate that recognition in the talent marketplace on your own or with a small group of people. I had to spend a significant amount of my time, probably about 20% of my time, reaching out and cultivating that so that inevitably it led to a more diverse team and bringing people on. And that's also happening today within my current organization. I spend a lot of time. I want to know, some leaders say, well, I'm going to leave it to all my leaders to hire. And that's okay. But I want to be much more involved and hands-on so that I could challenge also my team to think differently, looking at internal talent, external talent, early in career individuals we may not have even thought of for a role. We could teach them. If they're smart, we can teach them.
So you've got a team of around 200 people. Would you get involved in every appointment in that organization?
Ideally, I could, but realistically, I can't. So how I have prioritized it is on roles that report to my leaders. So essentially, my direct reports. At a minimum, I would like to meet them, know them, have a chance to discuss with them prior to us continuing on that if we decide to bring them on board on the team. For me, it's important for them to know, not only for them to know me, but me to know them, but them to know where we're headed. And they need to be on that journey with us. I'll say that most people are very excited on the journey that we're headed at Teva. And when I share the journey and the pivot to growth strategy and how finance is a critical aspect of that journey and being there, they want to join. So it's a bit of they need to know what they're signing on for. And this is not like any organization. We're not just signing on for competencies. We're signing on for leaders, whether they're individual contributors as leaders or leaders of people.
And even then, looking at the direct reports of your direct reports, that'll still involve you in the relationships with quite a large number of people.
It is, but you know what? What does it take to get things done? People. If you invest the time in people, which again, for me has been really important, but have yielded significant results. And again, what did I say? Like one of the key parts of a finance organization is delivering results. That means delivering the people to deliver that results. And so for me, I take a lot of time focused on individuals in the organization. I've probably interviewed at least within just the 8 months I've been at Teva, over 40 people for different roles. Not necessarily that we've hired those individuals, and I can quickly tell probably within the first 10, 15 minutes that whether that individual will fit into where we're headed or where maybe perhaps they are suited for another role.
Wow, brilliant. Now, we talked about business partnering. We talked about the finance being the business within the business. So those business partners getting involved in lots of operational stuff that's going on in the business. Now, I know in Grow CFO, one of the things I often hear is from particularly newer CFOs or finance leaders at the level below, the complaint that, oh, I can't get myself involved in strategy. They don't involve me in strategy. How do you go about making sure your finance people are involved in strategy?
Well, there is the traditional approach of finding out what is happening in strategy and being part of and asking to be included. That's certainly one approach. And that works when you come across a certain project that's happening and you might say, well, how can finance play a role of this? Or I'm aware that this project is ongoing and finance should have a seat at the table. That's certainly one approach. And that happens quite often. The other approach, but I'll go back to business partnering. When the individuals across the organizations see finance individuals as a thought partner, as a business partner, there is no shortage of projects or strategic work that will come your way. I have seen this play out so often that I'm going to give you an example. I was in a role where we were having a very challenging time launching into a therapeutic category. And it was difficult. And months had gone by. And we were not seeing any significant uptake or inflection in our market share. And so at the time, the head of that business and I sat together almost, I would say daily, at least 2 to 3 times a week. And we would sit there and say, why is this not happening? And we keep asking why and go deeper and deeper into the business issue, the business question, the challenge. And we would think about what is happening at the customer level, at the patient level, at the healthcare provider level, at the hospital system level. And we would challenge and keep thinking about the why and why. Through that, we were able to unlock a lot of we realized, wow, we have quite a bit of business challenges here that we need to go after and fix. So that was a very strategic type of relationship and thought partnering that I had with a commercial leader, actually, who to this day is a very close friend of mine. And through that individual did not necessarily just see me as the CFO in that particular case, but saw me as their thought partner. And they would come to me often with strategic questions that had nothing to do with necessarily a budget or a finance process, but a challenge in the market. So my response is, don't just ask to be part of strategic processes. You could certainly do that. But if you demonstrate the capabilities and how you're able to add value, there will be no shortage of strategic projects that come your way. That's my experience.
And it all comes from being a great business partner.
All comes from being a great business partner and understanding the market and having intellectual curiosity. I think for me, it's always about how can I fix something? How can I think about something different? What else can I learn? For me, the science, I happen to be in the pharmaceutical industry, but this applies to any industry. Finance individuals should pick up, if they're a public company, read the 10Ks. There's a lot of wealth of information in there about the business of their company. They should learn about their company, understand the dynamics, and understand not just that company, but the broader macro environment. What's happening in policy and across, if it's a regulated industry, what's happening with policies in that industry and regulations. By understanding all that and having that intellectual curiosity, you bring a broader perspective of a finance individual. Because in the end, what is a finance individual? A finance individual is the business. So if you bring that lens, you're able to capitalize on so much business partnering opportunities. And again, going back to unlocking value for the company and for shareholders.
Brilliant. Sharon, we could go on talking about this, I think, for the rest of the day.
Let's do that, Kevin, one day.
We'll do that one day. Thank you for being this week's guest on the Grow CFO Show.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I look forward to continued conversations and inspiring the next CFOs and finance leaders.